Good morning.
Morning.
Mike Wade, 38 Concord Street. So on the agenda today, there is a discussion regarding the possibility of districting. And I just had a couple of questions for you regarding why that discussion is taking place. In talking to a number of citizens, a couple of them even yesterday, they expressed some concern that 241 acres up on Old Georgetown Road was sold with voting rights. It was sold annexed to the town. And I told them I would ask the question, why was it not de-annexed before it was sold? So that's my question to you folks.
Well, that never came up. That property had been in city limits for 20, 30 years. I'd have to go back and see when it was taken into our city limits. But it was shortly after we purchased it. It was purchased for sewer expansion. That didn't happen because we transferred to the county. And so it's been in our city limits forever. I thought it was common knowledge. It's on our zoning maps, you know. So it's not like anything was underhanded. It had always been that way.
No, I'm not implying anything was underhanded. I was curious as to the process that took place.
If it were being de-annexed, if we had de-annexed it, Mike, and that goes to the county control, we would have no control over what's going there.
But instead, what you may have is no control over the island by the citizens on the island.
That's why
Because-
That's why we're talking about
Exactly. That's why you're talking about it.
redistricting, yes.
Right, exactly. So you're looking at between maybe 1,200 and 1,500 voters off island that in one way or another, you have to look for how to protect the island itself and the people who vote here. So, you know, and I understand that districts is one of the possibilities, although districts have pros and cons as well. So I look forward to hearing the results of your discussion and then also how we move forward. But again, the main question was just, did you think of de-annexing the property? Because my understanding is that we could have de-annexed that
We could
property
have
before it was sold.
requested it. It still has to go to state legislature.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
it does. But if the property owner makes that request, normally those requests are fulfilled.
Not necessarily.
According to people I've talked to, in this situation, their opinion would be that those requests had a high likelihood of being accepted. So again, the horse is out of the barn, and we have to deal with it as best we can. But I wanted the complete story so I could, you know, let people know when they ask me, how did we get here, you know, what that answer is. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it sounds like we didn't address it at the time, right?
Nor was there any public concern about it, and the sale of this property lasted well over a year. So
There was no public forum though on it, was there? I couldn't find one.
there was no public forum over zoning, no, but it was at multiple public meetings that contracts were offered, contracts were renegotiated. So people knew it was up for sale, without a doubt.
Yeah, and again, you know, I wasn't here for that conversation. I just, you know, based on the reaction I've gotten, which is a reaction of shock that this could have happened, that I don't know that people put it together, that a property that the town was selling off island as large as this one, granted it was zone C3, but I don't think most of the citizens were really thinking about when they heard about it. What they heard was, hey, great, you know, it used to be a $5 million bid, you know, after 8 upset bids, we got $11 million out of it, blah, blah, blah. So they're thinking, okay, here's the dollars. But it does not appear, at least from the people I talked to, that the implication of selling it, still annexed, they ever thought of. And I think that well, I won't speak for them.
Well, I'm sorry what people may not have thought of, but there are pros and cons to it being in the city limits, and it depends on your point of view. Yes, it may be more voters. It will also be more tax base that comes into our town. So.
Well, and that is correct. There would be more tax base coming into the town, and maybe the value of the property was greater because it was annexed into the town. But then it becomes a question of whether those dollars were worth relinquishing control potentially of this island by the people who live on this island. And I mean, that's, you know, those are just the facts, right?
Again, that's why we're looking at voting districts.
Yeah, and that's a long time into the future as well.
Well, I heard that 2025 could be, at least something I read in some of the meeting minutes, 2025 could be when at least construction on this begins. So it's not that far into the future that we have to deal with it. And I'm glad we're talking about it now. It's also not time critical that we decide what the solution is. If we go to districts, that's fine. We've got a couple of years before the next election. So, you know, there's no rush to judgment here to try and figure it out.
I don't think there's a need to talk about go to districts today, because there's nothing out there to district and
Right.
give voters,
Right,
give voting rights to.
right.
But I think it's important that this board discuss it, and we will continue to discuss it into the future and make that decision at the right time. But we are beginning to explore our options and what we can do. So
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
the purpose of it being on our agenda today.
No, I understand. I understand. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.